sun was sinking over Maple Avenue, painting the quiet street gold. From a distance, everything looked calm. Perfect lawns, white fences, that soft hush of a small American neighborhood winding down for the day. But behind one cracked sidewalk and a chipped white porch, that peace was broken by a sound no one should ever hear. A small, trembling sob that a little boy stood barefoot on the porch, clutching a worn teddy bear. His cheeks were wet, his eyes red. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely louder than the wind. He hit my grandma, and just like that, the stillness shattered. If this story touches your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Loom. His name was Ethan, 6 years old. His hoodie was streaked with dust from when he fell running out the door. Behind him sat his grandmother, Clara, holding her arm, her blue dress torn at the shoulder. A bruise had begun to darken across her cheek. She tried to hide the pain with a weak smile, but her body betrayed her. At the doorway stood a man, tall, red-faced, and half-drunk. A beer bottle dangled from his hand. Right, he wasn't family, just a man who had promised to help out after Clara's husband passed away. Instead, he brought fear and control into their home. Ethan didn't know what to do, so he ran. He ran until his small feet burned on the concrete, until he could no longer hear his grandmother's soft cry. All he knew was that someone had to help. He stood at the end of the yard, his shoulders shaking. And that's when he heard it, a sound like thunder rolling down the street. 6 motorcycles turned the corner, chrome glinting in the late sunlight. The roar filled the air, heavy and alive. They slowed to a stop in front of Clara's house, the engines idling. At the front of the group was a man with a salt and pepper beard and eyes that carried a history. Tattoos curled down his arms, telling stories of battles, lost and won. On his black vest, the words Hell's Angels were stitched in bold white. Underneath, R.L.H. Hills. His name was Reed. He swung off the bike, the rumble quieting behind him. His boots hit the pavement. He looked at Ethan, dusty, shaking, still clutching that teddy bear. "Hey, buddy," Reed said, crouching to meet his eyes. His voice was gravelly, but soft. "You okay? What happened?" Ethan didn't speak. He just lifted his small hand and pointed at the porch, at the man still standing there, and the grandmother sitting broken beneath him. Reed's jaw tightened. He knew that kind of pain. He had lived it once in a different house with a different kind of silence. Back then, he was too small to stop it. But now he wasn't. He stood, slowly, calmly. Behind him, his crew lined up. 5 men in black vests, quiet as statues. The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Curtains moved. Neighbors peeked from their windows. Ray squinted from the porch, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. "This ain't your business." Reed took a few steps forward. The sunlight hit his vest as he stopped at the bottom of the steps. "It became my business," he said quietly. "The second I heard that boy cry." Ray's hand twitched. The beer bottle tilted. For the first time that day, he seemed smaller than the bottle he held. The bikers didn't say a word. They didn't have to. Their presence spoke louder than anything. Men who had once lived rough lives, now standing as shields for someone else. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Loom. Reed kept his voice steady. "She doesn't need your help anymore. Pack your things. You're done here." Ray looked at Clara, her trembling hands, her bruised face, and then at Ethan, who was watching from behind Reed's leg. For a moment, the man looked ready to speak, to argue, to explain himself. But then he saw the truth in Reed's eyes. He backed up. One step, then another. Moments later, he disappeared inside the house, the door slamming once before the sound of an old truck faded down the street. For the first time that day, silence returned to Maple Avenue, but it was a different kind of silence. Softer, lighter, Reed turned back toward Clara. He crouched beside her, his expression changing from steel to something gentler. "You didn't have to," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Ma'am," Reed said quietly. "No one should have to live scared. Not you. Not him." His words caught slightly, the kind that come from a place that still remembers. He motioned to his men. One handed Clara a bottle of water. Another took out a small first aid kit. They worked quietly, carefully, checking her arm, speaking to her with respect. The same neighbors who had watched from behind their curtains now stared in silence, witnessing something they never expected. Rough-looking bikers showing more tenderness than anyone else on the street. If this moment touched your heart, stay till the end. What happens next will surprise you. Minutes later, an ambulance arrived. The medic stepped out, guided by Reed's crew, who explained everything calmly. While Clara was being helped inside, Reed sat on the steps beside Ethan. The boy's tears had dried into small lines across his dusty face. He looked up at the man sitting next to him, then whispered, "Are you going to take her away?" Reed shook his head. "No, son. They're just going to help her feel better." Ethan nodded slowly. He looked down at his teddy bear, then back at Reed. "He used to be nice," he said quietly, "before he started drinking." Reed didn't answer right away. He just listened. The wind carried the faint sound of birds returning home. "People lose themselves sometimes," he said, "but that's not your fault. You did the right thing." The boy didn't say anything more. He leaned against Reed's arm, holding the teddy bear tightly. And for the first time that day, he smiled. Just a small, tired smile. But it was enough to make Reed's throat tighten as the ambulance doors closed. Reed stood. The rest of his crew was already by their bikes, ready to go. Ethan ran over and wrapped his arms around Reed's arm. "Thank you," he whispered. Reed looked down and managed a faint smile. "You're a brave kid, Ethan." When the ambulance pulled away, he climbed back onto his bike. The engines rumbled to life again, but before he put on his helmet, Reed turned for one last look. Clara was safe. The boy was waving from the porch, teddy bear in hand. The golden light wrapped around them both, soft and calm. He didn't say anything, but the thought stayed with him. Sometimes, the loudest acts of kindness come from those the world least expects. He revved his bike once, the sound echoing down Maple Avenue. Not as a threat, but as a promise. A promise that kindness still rides wherever it's needed. Before you go, wait till you hear what happens next. Stay with us. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Loom, where we bring real stories of kindness, courage, and second chances.